Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you back to part two of tonight's edition of In Conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi, right here on Salam Media. We'll welcome you, our listeners, our viewers on the various platforms of Salam Media. And also a much talked about topic in South Africa and of concern, obviously, has been the growing xenophobia, Afrophobia in the country. Now, we've learned about 60 organizations from three major provinces, from KwaZulu-Natal, from Gauteng, and the Western Cape, coming together, and they've issued a memorandum and also talking about an event that is due to take place this week, which is on the 8th of August, this coming weekend. And this is what we want to talk about, is the thinking behind these 60 organizations coming together, and also unpacking what some of the issues are and what they will be raising on August the 8th. And we are joined by Percy in How, we are Deborah Ewing, Tori Jenkins, Chief Kam Duarte, and also Shahid Mohammed. Five guests this evening, which is quite a full panel for us right here on Salam Media. To all of you, Percy, Deborah, Chief Kam, Tori Jenkins, Shahid, welcome to the show. We do appreciate you taking time out.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Shahid, let's just talk about this, because when I received this notification about the event that is taking place, and obviously I was trying to unpack the fact that 60 organizations have come together under what is called Operation Ubuntu. If you could just take us through some of the background and some of the thinking behind this.
Yeah, I suppose in any particular order, I think on the 11th of July, there was a mass meeting. In fact, I won't say it's a meeting of delegates of about 30 organizations that came together, and that we were saying that the image that is being projected by most of the media seems to indicate that people in South Africa are in general xenophobic, and that we have abandoned the spirit of Ubuntu. And we realized that it's not the case. And we felt that we wanted to make a statement. And it's not just about making a statement, but it's about launching a campaign for building an Africa solidarity movement. You know, if you realize the borders in Africa have been drawn by the colonizer. And the reasoning behind them was to create dependence. So if you look at it, when there was political independence, there was still economic dependence, and that was by design. And therefore, the way forward for Africa is different from the nation states in Europe, because we need to integrate. And our future, and the future of our children and their children, lies in integration. And we felt that as a positive step, the spirit of Ubuntu says that we need to unite across Africa. And the main cause of our suffering in Africa is the looting by the international mines and banks. So we felt there's enough wealth in Africa and in South Africa to solve our problems, but the wealth is being looted by the mines and the banks, and the government is complicit in that. And xenophobia does not happen spontaneously, it has been engineered. And we, as the masses, we need to start to unite. And it's fantastic that within a short space of time, we've gotten together organizations from Gauteng, from KZN, which is the heart of, let's say a tribal movement that is trying to break the true spirit of Africa, and we are not going to allow it. And we want to salute our comrades in the KZN for being so bold. Even though the numbers might not be big, but we salute them. That bravery is really fantastic. That's the type of spirit that that actually brought us political independence. So I'll stop there, but that's just a broad background. It's not an ending result. It is just a march. We'll march to Parliament to hold the government to account. That's really the essence. In Gauteng, we will hold the government to account, and across the country. And in fact, we are calling for, but we'll talk about it later, an Africa-wide action. I'll stop there. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that, Shahid. Percy, let's just, because I see you from KwaZulu-Natal, and Shahid made special reference to KwaZulu-Natal, which is one of the hotspots as well. And just your thoughts, because, obviously this is protest action against xenophobia, but as Shahid pointed out, there are many other underlying issues that have contributed and that have been playing out for a very, very long time. And just looking at the banner, and the banner speaks about reclaiming Ubuntu, about Africa Unite. Now, this is absolutely important. And let's just look at it from a KZN perspective, because it's always been seen as one of the hottest spots in the country.
I don't know. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Yes, you can hear.
Yes. I want us to probably look at how did we get here, and it is important that we begin to understand how we got to a situation where there's quite a big number of migrants in South Africa, and why now this kind of xenophobic attitudes that have suddenly sprung out everywhere. It's not only in KZN. In fact, I think it's worse in Gauteng than in KZN when I look at what is happening. People need to understand, from the organization I come from, I think we need to look at it from a historical point of view, where South Africa was constructed by migrant labor. If you talk about the Indians that came to do the sugarcane fields, and then the Southern Africans that used to work in the mines in Gauteng mostly. And the way this economy was engineered, it was engineered in such a way that it sort of I wouldn't say de-industrialized, but I would say it ensured that the rest of Southern Africa could not develop. The rest of Southern Africa was sort of maybe headhunted into ensuring that South Africa is constructed. And this happened even before 1910, when South Africa was created, in the gold rush, where you had people from all over the world. So by and large, South Africa is a migrant economy, and that is the reason why you find so many people gravitating towards South Africa, because it's both historical, and South Africa is the most developed economy in this part of Africa. And I think what has happened is that there was a failure to either manage immigration and to ensure that history is taught in schools. Because I think if people without a history who only look at history from a perspective that looks at their ethnic group and not necessarily the rest of the country and the rest of the continent, are problematic when it comes to ensuring that there is Ubuntu, there is integration in this country. Then I would. It is my need to ensure that even the media itself, the media is so ignorant. A News 24 journalist asked someone from Lepelale, Etonga, that do you have a passport? So when you have journalists asking such questions, these are the kind of people that are actually peddling misinformation. And I don't know why media houses have sort of maybe been geared towards promoting xenophobia, because it is the media that has propagated all these lies about migrants and the xenophobic attitude. So I think if we are going to change the attitude, we need to take the media houses to task for the kind of journalism that they've displayed in the past 2 years, where you only get that when you hear that there are 15 million migrants in this country, when the last census did not say that. And people think that when the census only counts South Africans, people need to understand that when the census says there are 60 million in this country, it's 60 million for everyone, whether they're documented or not. And as well, if there are going to be 15 million migrants in this country, I don't think it would be able to support that kind of huge influx of people without disrupting the country's social life at all. So I think what we need to do as activists and everyone else is to ensure that the information that is put out there is accurate, because the information is available. When you look at the issues of unemployment, only 5% of migrants are employed in formal employment, and the rest that come in here create their own employment. And I remember when I came in 2005, the Durban Harbour did not work 24 hours. But because of migrants that began to come in 2005 and thereabouts, the Durban Harbour started working 24 hours. And as well, the issue of trucks, these people that are employing migrants, because when they started their businesses, they had very old trucks want to drive. So that's how they ended up with the majority of migrant as drivers. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Yes, thank you, Percy. Let's just bring Chief Duarte into the discussion, because Chief Duarte, obviously it's a very interesting angle that I'd like to actually take with you regarding, what we are talking about, because, representing the Khoi and the San people. Now, we know that historically there have been many, many challenges that have been faced, whether we're talking about ancestral land dispossession, we're talking about legal, we talk about cultural recognition as well, exclusion at times from mainstream socio-political structures. These have been major, major talking points. Now, if there's anyone that needs to have, or that has a problem, or that has a gripe in South Africa and how the system is working, has been the Khoi and the San people. And yet we see on the African continent, in terms of, while we are calling at an event like this for Africa, or on August the 8th for Africa to unite, again we see it within our own country, where the indigenous people of this land are being treated in this manner as well, and particularly coming from a rich historical background like yours.
I just to the viewers out there, and thank you for this opportunity for us to articulate ourselves. So you are absolutely correct, sir. With regards to the marginalization of the indigenous people, I want to take us back. Let me take you right back to the propaganda history that were taught to us in school. The propaganda history that were taught to us in school, we will learn that Jan van Riebeeck discovered Cape Town in the year 1652, which is a lie, propaganda. We as the indigenous people, the Khoi and San, our ancestors, has found with Almeida, with Portuguese, and other colonialists before that time. For example, we had a victory in the year 1510 when Almeida came to our shores, and they came with their cannons and they came with their guns, and our indigenous people, the Khoi and San, defeated them. They defeated Almeida and the colonialists in the Black River, the same Black River currently that the city of Cape Town wants to turn into a housing project. So yes, propaganda history, but most importantly for us to note is the fact that our indigenous people, my ancestors, were very hospitable. We were very hospitable. We allowed the Jan van Riebeecks, we allowed the Cecil John Rhodes, we allowed the colonialists and imperialists into our country, yet to find out at the end of the day that we are sitting now without any land, without any minerals, and we are being deprived of this. The speaker before us has actually mentioned that this country is so rich. It's so rich with its minerals that we can all live in peace and harmony. Now, this is the principles of the indigenous people, of our cultural people, the Khoi and San. We don't mind that we can share the wealth, but unfortunately, we're sitting now or we are facing systematic oppression by this regime. Now, the systematic oppression that we are currently facing with this regime is that we cannot understand that you have a coat of arms that's talking our language, in our indigenous language. It says, Iki kare kare ka, unity in diversity. That's what it says, unity in diversity. But you find out our language, our Khoisan language, the Kukukuap language, are not even recognized as an official language in this country. The last type of language that was accepted, I think, as a 12th language was a language for people with disability that cannot hear or see. And yet we have the oldest language. The colonialists came here and they heard our people talking the tes and the tas, and what frustrated them is that they could not understand what are we talking. Now you heard the myth of our people in Cape Town whose front teeth were extracted, which don't have front teeth currently. And we ask our question, why is the front teeth extracted? This is because of they've used our people as slaves in their kitchens. And when our people spoke the language, what they did, they took pliers and they pulled our people's teeth out violently for them not to speak the language. So yeah, it's currently we're facing systematic oppression, and the very same colonialists with apartheid regime has take our identity away from us. Then they labeled us as so-called coloreds. Now the word colored is very derogatory. The word colored is derogatory in the sense that if you go to any other country like Britain and you call a person a colored, it's a derogatory term. So it's unacceptable for us to still be still categorized and classified under that derogatory term colored. The United Nations, with 144 countries, including former President Zuma and Mandela, has said in the United Declaration, and what they've done, there's a United Declaration for Indigenous People, which they signed. They agreed that with regards to the indigenous people, the Khoi and San, these people must be treated fairly and equally. They've not implemented it. They've not rolled out it. Instead, what they've done, they took some of our leaders, so-called Khoisan leaders, and they drafted a document called the Traditional Leadership Khoisan Act. Now, unfortunately, it is what it is. You will always find people that will be easily manipulated by just being offered monetary. This is what's happening with our leaders, our Khoi and San leaders. They are being offered monetary compensation to sell our people out. Coming back to our current discussion. You know, it is so strange what's happening in this country. It's so strange and happening.
Chief Duarte, can I just stop you there for a minute, please? I just want to get the thoughts of Deborah and Tariq as well, and we'll come back to the current situation as well. I'd just like to bring Deborah. Deborah, hopefully, you have sorted out your issues with regard to sound and you're able to hear us.
I can hear you. Thank you. Sorry, I've missed quite a bit.
Yes, Deborah, the fact that, looking at us here in South Africa, and I'm just looking ahead at Operation Ubuntu and what this actually stands for. And I know many have already spoken about the xenophobia, about some of the injustices, and also in terms of where we are in South Africa. And obviously, we are at a critical stage. And the point that I have made in the last few months and in covering particularly what is taking place, whether we call it xenophobia, Afrophobia as well, that this country has been ripe for a revolution for a long, long time. And the fact of the matter is we've seen looting at a large scale in this country, whether we're looking at corruption in government, whether we're looking at corporates, whatever it is, we find that this gap between rich and poor has been widening, and the billionaire and the millionaire class have benefited since South Africa became a democracy. And I think this is one of the critical elements in terms of Operation Ubuntu, talking about survival not being a crime and ending the criminalization of poverty?
Yes, I think what you say about, who's benefiting, certainly the impoverished people of South Africa are not benefiting. And when we look at this issue of criminalization of poverty and what are we fighting for, this is an issue that affects everybody. So we currently have registered refugees and asylum seekers who are on the pavement in Durban because they've been chased from their homes more than 2 months ago. And just around the corner from them is another group of mainly South Africans, unhoused people, also on the pavement. And the attitude of authorities towards both these groups seems to be that this is a violation of the bylaws, not a gross violation of the human rights of all of these people. So I think that's what we need to shift, is looking at how do we create an inclusive economy? How do we work together to build the kind of society that we want to see that benefits all of us, instead of looking for whom can we blame and against whom can we channel the rage and the despair of so many people.
Yes, thank you for that, Deborah. And let's just bring Tariq into the discussion as well, Tariq. And just Tariq, to add to what I see, here we go. Tariq, just to add to what Deborah is saying as well. And also, I think from some of the other speakers, from Shahid, from Chief Duarte as well, and Percy, I see we've lost some contact with him as well. For just looking at South Africa and in our diversity, we had embraced Ubuntu in the past, and that seems to be lost at this point in time with what we see playing around us. But once again, we need to reignite that spark of Ubuntu. Is that one of the most important critical, aspects of what we can expect to see from the 60 organizations who have supported Operation Ubuntu?
Thank you for that question, and also just to thank all the colleagues and comrades who have given some really powerful insights in terms of why Saturday, the 8th of the 8th, is so important. I think simply to answer your question is that not only are we in a situation where the very concept of our collective humanity and Ubuntu is being thrown down the river, the way around which the articulation and the justification of these vigilante groups going into communities and creating a violent set of circumstances that has made disposable in ways that are indicative of apartheid, in ways that are resembling fascism, in ways that in many forms perhaps paint rather a picture of the imagination of Verwoerd rather than the translation of the motto that we have inscribed in terms of our country that Chief Kham was referring to. We are at a precipice now where I think we've come to the realization, and this has been a realization, of course, that precedes this moment, but the urgency of this moment and the particular moral cause of this moment also suggests that not only is it an absolute imperative for people of conscience across the board in this country to stand up, to be vocal, to get to the streets, and to say not in our name, but also that I think we've come to this particular decisive moment where it has to be clear that unity is not just a friendly term. Unity is not just a sort of romantic notion of how we are as Africans. Unity is deeply imbibed within the very fabric and identity of this continent, and I'll speak a little bit about that. But it is part of how we will survive. how we will survive in terms of dignity, and how we will actually survive in terms of the African continent, the whole, as it faces imperialism and colonial forces. What we're seeing is a particular level of orchestrated destabilization, where because of the failure of the state over the last few decades in terms of its austerity, in terms of the jobs bloodbath, we have deep vulnerabilities that are so accentuated and so extreme that poor working class communities are indeed suffering. And there's absolutely no way that we can try and buffer the extent of that suffering. However, we also live in a country that every now and again, these fault lines of oppression, these particular fault lines are triggered through very manipulative and targeted forms of agent-driven, political-driven, big financial-driven agendas. And it's of course no coincidence that this completely disgraceful humanitarian crisis is happening in the context of an election. And I think what the colleagues and comrades are saying is that when we talk about xenophobia and Afrophobia, it is a result of a complex interconnectedness of struggles that are happening. We cannot talk about xenophobia without talking about the housing crisis. We cannot talk about xenophobia without speaking to our solidarity with Palestine, with Congo, with all people oppressed. We cannot speak about xenophobia without speaking about the fact that the same government is trying to push through some of the most ferocious apartheid type amendments, such as the prevention of the illegal eviction amendment bill, which will basically, as Comrade Demer had said, further criminalize poverty, where it would, in such an extreme way, where organized occupations on land for housing and dignity will be criminalized to the point of up to 2 million rand sentencing, and 2 years in prison, and also the criminalizing and delimiting of social justice advocacy and humanitarian entities that are all within that space. So with that as well, we have to acknowledge the fact that xenophobia and Afrophobia as being sort of founded on this idea that all the problems that we face in this country, that all the problems that we face as individuals, organizationally, in terms of even collectively as communities, is as a result of one entity, the foreigner, the other, is a lie. It's a blatant lie. But the fact of the matter is that that lie can be really effective when it is peddled amongst communities that are suffering. And this redirection of what is a righteous anger, this redirection of what is a need for restorative justice, of what is a need to really tackle apartheid spatial planning and the systemic forms of corruption that are linked to various, hegemonic systems of oppression, that this particular lie of creating a scapegoat of our fellow sisters and brothers on the move is something that is being orchestrated and is highly impactful. And I think what was mentioned earlier was, there is an issue of education. Because when we take a look at other countries that certainly do not have the same fair share of the GDP that we do, in moments of struggle and poverty and these kinds of challenges, the first thing that comes to people, the first thing that may come to their mind is not to blame it on our fellow African brothers and sisters. And so part of this is because the notion of Ubuntu, the notion of our solidarity, this extraordinary history that we have in terms of even the founding of SADC was built on how other African countries basically sacrificed their own economic stability in order to maintain a boycott, divestment, and sanction against apartheid. And the freedom and the victories that we celebrate today is, in a very significant way, owed to the bravery of millions of other African sisters and brothers who made those sacrifices. Many people try to celebrate, and we see the images of, protest marches in the UK during the anti-apartheid struggle and the United States. But sometimes we do not see the images of Mozambique being carpet bombed in the 80s, of Namibia, of Angola, where entire villages were wiped out because they were holding liberation and resistance, cadres and people who were committed to that kind of solidarity. And so for us to have that level of selective amnesia is very painful. And I think what we are doing on Saturday is to bring back dignity and to make it very clear that no vigilante criminal group that may represent whatever hegemonic power will ever have the temerity, the arrogance, and the dishonesty to tell anyone in this country and on this continent that Ubuntu and its concept has been suspended and is placed on further notice. What these organizations are collectively saying is that Ubuntu is alive, Ubuntu is here, and we will find our freedom through the unity that we must accept, not just at a localized level, but also in terms of our broader solidarity. Because when there's an injury that happened in Somalia, or a catastrophe or a manipulated economic situation that happens in any other part of this continent, it does impact on us. Simply
Absolutely.
because the set of circumstances and the things that govern and the things that the economic question and how the actual system is operating.
Tariq, I know,
we have that level of
unfortunately, we
solidarity.
have got limited time and we've got quite a huge panel. So I'd like to actually get to the next round. I know there's just so much you can add, and I quite like what you are saying. It just makes so much sense. But also, I think coming back to Shahid as well. Shahid, I think one of the most important things, and I think Tariq, mentioned so much with regard to solidarity, and particularly looking at what is taking place this coming weekend. Saying that this is not a protest, but it is about solidarity, but also about justice. Because I think, many of us fail sometimes to understand what it actually means to be an African. And let's just not talk alone or think in South African terms only. Tariq spoke about what happened in Namibia, in Mozambique, and I'm sure many other parts around Africa where we've seen genocides, and we still see genocides like we see what is taking place in Sudan as we speak right now. And South Africa looked as Big Brother, a powerhouse economy, and the fact that South Africa cannot show solidarity with our African brothers and sisters. South Africans cannot meet justice to our African brothers and sisters who are on our soil. And I think Chief Duarte also spoke about the Khoi and the San, where they welcome people like Van Riebeeck, where they welcome the Brits, Cecil John Rhodes. They welcome everybody in this country, and yet we are doing what we are at this point in time.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that, that opening, and thank you to all the speakers as well. Many people don't realize the role that the South African government, we're talking about all factions of them, that what they are doing, they are covering up for the colonizer, for the imperial power. And I want to, take the viewership and the listenership through a couple of points just to realize, because the question that's been asked, oh, people are taking our resources, are they really? Who's taking the resources? There's research done by very reputable researchers, Sam Ashman, Ben Fine, Susan Newman, and many others, Patrick Bond, who have recorded that the mining companies mainly have been looting South Africa before 1994, and it has accelerated after 1994 to the tune of between 5% and 20% of GDP. To put that in rands and cents, the mining companies are taking out 200 billion up to 600 billion a year. And what does the government do? The government gives these mining companies amnesty. But what do they do to the migrant? You know, if you say on 16th August 2012 was the Marikana moment, the Marikana massacre, the 30th of June is the Musina moment for the government because they've launched the biggest forced removal in the history of the country within a month. 160,000 of our fellow African brothers and sisters. It's bigger than even the forced removals from Crossroads in 1986. Now, to also go to the continent, the rest of the continent, the Mbeki report of 2015 and his panel found that Africa is being looted by the same mining companies that's operating in South Africa. And to the tune of what? Almost 1 trillion rand per year. So, what does the South African government do? You know, after 1997, there was a war in the DRC. There is still a war in the DRC, maybe at a lower level, but there's still a war. The government has sent for a number of years South African troops to the DRC. 6 million of the Congolese were killed while the minerals are being looted and being used. Everybody's got a cell phone. Those minerals, those blood minerals, are being used in the cell phones. Now, the army that the South African government sends to the DRC or sent to the DRC doesn't protect the people. The people don't know that. The army was set there to protect the mines, to protect the looting across Africa. You know, it's a disgrace. On the 30th of June, it's such a tragic day because on that day, as Comrade Tariq and the others are saying, the government provided a free police service armed to the teeth around the country to do what? They protected the fascists. They went around intimidating people, our brothers and sisters, intimidating them. Within days, 160,000 people left the country. And what did the government do? In 2008, 2015, 2021, the government provided settlement camps, temporary camps, so that those who were displaced were moved back into they were integrated. What did the government do now? They put them on the bus. The DA, the ANC, everybody. There's no difference between them. They expelled 160,000 people to die in other parts of Southern Africa. My goodness. That's why we say this is the Musina moment. We are living in it. We are not going to allow it. Many thousands of people died to free South Africa. We will not allow fascism to rear its head here. You know, there are lots of other mechanisms. If you allow me just 2 more minutes to explain to the people. The people who are why there are large queues in the hospitals. Why is our education system collapsing? Why don't we have a free housing and decent housing for all? Those are all possible. We've already mentioned 200 billion every year is being taken by the mines. Then you have also that the government since 1994 up to now has reduced the tax rate for these companies on their profits from 48% to 28%. That's another 200 billion. So there's 400 billion available. You know, the government takes loans from the World Bank. They just took a loan of 20 billion. They've been taking, the World Bank gives conditions. They say privatize. And not only that, we in Africa, not only South Africa, we in Africa pay 10% interest, but the same loan in Europe is 3%. Then also the point of the apartheid debt, which the government said can go ahead. You know, then there's the last point I want to raise, the whole question of the currency manipulation. There are court cases. The government doesn't push it. You know, these people who are manipulating the currency, the rand and the dollar is 15 rand to the dollar. But if you look at the productivity, it's perhaps at worst 2 to 1. So the rand exchange rate should be 2 rand to the dollar. But they manipulate it so that they can take the wealth out. So what I'm saying with all of that, there's at least 500, 600 billion rand every year that the government can use to create decent work and everything. There needn't be a single person living on the street. Why are we still living in townships? Why is there not integrated living? So who is taking the resources? Not the poor migrant. We need to unite with those migrants. And the last point, the companies in South Africa, mining companies, some of them have got South African names. And there's MTN, there's Standard Bank. They're going across the continent and they are exploiting workers. What right have we got to say? The basic trade union principle, where you've got the company, you unite as workers because you want to fight the company for better services. I'll stop there, but thank you so much for this opportunity for all of us. We wanted to just explain softly and kindly to the people to say South Africa is being looted. The government is allowing that. We need to hold them to account. We marched for Palestine. Let us march on the 8th of the 8th. Let us march for Africa. It's about time.
Yes, shukran for that, Shahid. Percy, let's just talk about your expectations and what are your thoughts looking ahead on the 8th of August? What are you hoping for? If you could unmute your mic, please, Percy. No, it's still muted. It's still muted. Okay.
I'm just hoping that the word gets out there, a different narrative gets out there. That this is what
Speak a bit louder, Percy. We can't hear you.
I'm just hoping that the word gets out there, a different narrative gets out there, because the narrative has been anti-migrant and it has been massive. And I would like to thank all those comrades that have been involved in organizing this event on Saturday, on the 8th. That for me, it's a start, but it has to be sustained, because I believe that if people are to get together as a society, as a community,
Percy, I think you are on quite soft. Actually, we're battling to hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, I'm saying I'm hoping that the event on Saturday creates a different narrative and a different environment, an environment that talks to equality, an environment that talks to that migrants are also human beings. Because I think what has happened is that the dehumanization of African migrants in this country has reached such proportions that you find that pregnant women can give birth on the pavement, and nobody in this a lot of people will even say they deserve that. So I think um, the event on the 8th should be a starting point, and it should be a starting point that should be sustained. And I would like also to take this opportunity to thank and appreciate all the organizations that have come together to make sure that this event happens, and all the organizations that have ensured that a different narrative is maintained despite the avalanche of the anti-migrant sentiments online and even in the mainline in the mainline news. And I would also like to thank the comrades that are here for the work that you have all done. I've been watching and observing the work that we've been doing, and it is because of you that we are having this event on the 8th. And thank you also for allowing me
Thank you for that, Percy. Chief Duarte, I think, there are two things that really stand out for me here. And again, this is not who we are as South Africans. This is not who we thought we were 30 years ago when we became a democracy and we spoke about Ubuntu, we spoke about being a rainbow nation. But all of this obviously portraying a very, very different image of South Africa. And I think comes Saturday, it's going to be a very strong message. It's going to be a very powerful message. It's going to be a very profound message, particularly surrounding the narrative regarding people from other parts of the world, and particularly our brothers and sisters who are here from the African continent. And I think it was Percy who used the term dehumanization. This is not who we are, and I think that is going to be a very strong message on Saturday.
No, most definitely. Saturday, the 8th of the 8th, it's a day in where it's a day of reckoning. It's a day of accountability, and we've drawn up the memorandum. Our memorandum is talking about it's addressing the South African Police Force. It's addressing Department of Human Settlement. It's addressing the presidency. It's addressing also the international context in how and where we find ourselves. But for us, it's very important for us to go back to the 1885 Berlin Conference. And this Berlin Conference not only set the framework to divide Africa into entities controlled by Europe and the United States. The lines were artificially drawn in the sand to create dependent entities. Now, this means that even if political independence was gained in these states, the states would still be economically dependent on the capitalist power of Europe and North America. Now, thus, the only way that real advancement can take place across Africa is by ending the colonial borders and uniting as masses in the continent. At the same time, we recognize that our unity must be built with the masses across the world. So, we've been deprived as Africa, and as our theme for this march is Ubuntu, we need to stand together, is to take back everything to our communities. Government entities does not realize that they have to come to the ground and speak to our people. Leader Tariq has mentioned, and we spoke about the Prevention of Illegal Eviction Act, which is going to be amended soon in Parliament. Now, the very same PI Act was not even brought to our communities where public participation can take place. Now, this is saying to us, as human beings, as people, that government does not care about our input, how we think, and how we want things. Now, the migrant workers are blamed here, and government are using our migrant workers as scapegoats of their failure. They have failed to build houses. They have failed to create jobs. And now they are working with vigilante groups in order to cover their failure. It is exactly what it is. Government has failed us. Government has failed the people, and they are looking now at vigilante groups like your March and your Dudulas in order to come to their rescue. Yes, what we need to do, and some of the speakers has really articulated and shared with us. The only way we'll be able to come together and understand what is surrounding us is through public education. Instead of spending 30 million rand just going on World Cups, that 30 million rand can be used to politically educate our people in order for us to share. Because our people in this country, we share common issues. The common issues that we are facing, whether you go to Gauteng, whether you go to Cape Town, whether you go to Durban, it is a struggle for housing. It's a national crisis. A national crisis that we are facing, and yet government failed to respond to the national crisis. Instead of responding and giving solutions to this, they go and blame our migrant workers for this, using our migrant workers as a scapegoat. My leader has also mentioned earlier that we as activists, we're social, that represent our organizations, we don't look at people by the color of their skin. We don't look at people because now we don't nationalize people. The first and foremost thing that we have to understand that we are all human beings. We are all human beings. And human beings need to be treated equally, and with respect. Now, this is the failure of government. Like I said, they're using our migrant workers as a scapegoat as their failures.
Thank you for the chief. Thank you very much. Deborah, just your thoughts, and I know Saturday is going to be quite, an interesting day because I know there is a dress code, wearing red, symbolizing blood, sacrifice, unity. The events that are taking place, you know, in Joburg, Cape Town, and Durban, and just what are some of your thoughts in terms and also expectations for Saturday?
Okay, thank you. So I think the anti-foreigner movements have been very visible. They've been very loud. They've legitimized violence and hatred. And this Saturday is about making Ubuntu visible, making solidarity visible, demanding accountability. Very specifically, we've been living in a condition where the police have stepped down. We are effectively ungoverned and at the mercy of people who can go raiding homes. Even this week, this was happening. People from the anti-migrant movements going into blocks of flats and seeking out foreigners and robbing them. So we have a common interest, all of us in this country, in the safety of our bodies, safety of our streets. We need to unite around that and empower each other, support each other to stand up and not just to demand services, but demand accountability from those who are whose job it is to protect everybody.
Well, absolutely. And finally, Tariq, I'll ask you to have the final say. Tariq?
I think
Yes.
Saturday is the moment where what has been lost can begin to be renewed. And that one other really important aspect of the color red is love.
Yes.
That we are going to ensure that love will be victorious here. And that the hatred, the vitriolic abuse, the forced removals that we've seen, the apartheid creep that is moving in all aspects of our society, and the fact that, you know, fascism in of itself is marching, you know, with great speed and with great energy around the world. All these things combined are important in terms of how we move together on Saturday. It is a start. It is the start of a very necessary mobilized sense of demonstration, a mobilized sense of making it very clear that vigilante entities like March and Dudula should not be allowed to usurp the agency and legitimacy of organizations and communities that for years have been truly and genuinely fighting these struggles on the ground, and that they do not speak on behalf of us. They also do not speak factually in terms of what are the underpinning aspects that you know, are part of this pain that is present. But ultimately, it is a very important moment that is happening where both in Cape Town, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Johannesburg, and in solidarity with, you know, with other you know, entities and communities around Africa, to really begin to hold the line and to make it very clear that the 160,000 human beings that have left us are actually a part of what has left us, and that the pain that has been felt in this country because of that forced departure can be renewed through one's feet, by moving, by physically taking a moment of solidarity, and to say that no one can be alone, and that you know, we are what we say we are, as we are who we are in the concept of, you know, of Ubuntu.
Well, shukran for that, Tariq. And I just want to reinforce the events that are taking place. It's taking place under the banner of Africa Standing Up and Unite, hashtag Operation Ubuntu. The locations: Johannesburg, Beesnoot Square at 9:30 a.m., Cape Town, CPUT Hanover Street at 10 a.m., and Durban at the eThekwini Mayor's Office at 10 a.m. and Africa-wide action calling for every street across Africa to hold a vigil at 8 p.m. Central African time. The dress code, wear red, symbolizing blood, sacrifice, and unity. Shahid Mohammed, Tariq Jenkins, Deborah Ewing, Percy Lau, and Chief Kam Duarte, we thank you. We do appreciate all of you taking time out with us this evening right here on Salam Media. All the best to you.
Thank you so much. Good night, colleagues.
Thank you.
Amasi. Kaikangans. Amasi. Tua Tama, come stay. The struggle continue. Aluta continua. Amase.
All the best, people. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of tonight's edition of In Conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi. And once again, we are seeing what a big issue this has become in South Africa as well, where we've seen 60 organizations coming together in solidarity, expressing their concerns not only about xenophobia, but a whole host of issues that have actually become a cancer and a plague in our country, from the whole question surrounding government and not taking accountability, the whole issue surrounding the corporates, South African resources, how they are being looted as well. So all of that put together, tells us that we've got a very tough road ahead. We've got a long road ahead in terms of restoring what we have come to know in this country as social justice, but also in terms of eradicating and eliminating the hate that we see around us and the dehumanization of our fellow brothers and sisters. And with that, I'm signing off from myself and the team here at Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.